Good morning, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. I would ask that Director Sani lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That flag is right there. And at this point, I don't see any members of the public. Is that correct?
Jan Rule.
Okay, we do have one member of the public. Okay, good morning. At this time, we're going to call for communications or announcements. Anyone on the board care to make an announcement?
Well, just my compliments to staff and our FBO for pulling off a great car week event. I forget the numbers on the overnight planes we
The last number I heard, and I won't testify to it being entirely accurate, was 138 aircraft overnight.
How does that compare to years past?
It's the busiest I've seen in the 6 years I've been
Really?
here. Yeah, we ended up having to close the short runway
Right.
to accommodate parking.
And that happened on Friday or?
Yes, it did. Yeah, Friday.
Yeah, the NOTAM showed up Thursday night.
Did it? Yeah. So, yeah, good, extremely good traffic. Not to mention, on Monday, the general manager of the FBO told me they had more than 30 fractional operations, which is like Exojet or a jet coming in, picking up people and taking them out as well. So that's in addition to what we had housed here.
Well, hopefully they had good sales too with fuel and everybody's happy.
Yeah,
And that was a great article, and I'll cut it short here soon, Mr. Chair, on the sustainable aviation fuels.
It was really a good article. The reporter did some in-depth research and talked to the right people and got the right information. Wrote it well. Yeah.
So the city of Monterey should be very happy as well, because there was over $300 million in cars sold. It gets sales tax.
Yep.
300 million.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
I think I think you pay the tax where you live. Yeah.
No, it's
Unfortunately, it's not that.
I've dug into this actually. Here's how it works. So that at least this is what I was told. The sales tax is calculated based on where you live, because it would then prevent people from gaming the system to go find a jurisdiction that has a cheaper or a lower tax rate.
Right.
So the tax rate is based on where you live, but it's collected by the county where the transaction occurs.
Okay.
Now,
Well,
if these cars are purchased by a dealer, there may not be tax due.
yeah, let's go.
Because it'll be a dealer-to-dealer transaction that's not considered for sales tax purposes. Ultimately, so I don't know how many of these are going to be from dealer to dealer, but there may or may not be tax due on some of these. But
Whatever it is, it's very large.
it's a good number.
Very.
And it's worth noting for the record that at 9:05, Chair Curcio was correct.
I'm gonna let you have the last word. Okay, moving on, would any member of the public at this point like to make any public comment on non-agendized items? Please indicate so by raising your hand. None? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. These items are all in your packet, and I know you've all had the time to read them. So at this point, I would like to call first off any member of the public that would like to pull an agenda item that's on consent. Seeing none, would any board member like to pull any item from consent?
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none. Amanda, roll call vote.
Director Sani,
Yes.
Director Lappel,
Yes,
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes. Director Sabo is still absent at this point. Okay, moving on. Thank you. We're going to move to G, which is regular agenda action items. And the first item is number 1 is Board of Directors stipends. Executive Director. please.
I'll tee this up and throw it to Director Leffel. She had asked for this to be an agendized item regarding stipends for meetings that you attend exterior to this meeting. And I'll let her take it from there to explain what her concerns are, her questions are.
Very good. Director Leffel.
good morning, you all. Sorry not to be there. On many fronts, I'm sorry. I will just tell you that about the last 4 months, I have ended up with a meeting in the morning, whether it be the Regional Taxi Authority or it's a LAFCO meeting or something else. And then I've got something else that afternoon. So I may have LAFCO or TA, or I might have a special districts thing. It's just been a conflict. And or it may have been that I was there for an airport finance committee meeting and then had a LAFCO meeting in the afternoon. My thought was that if we are attending exterior meetings as a representative of the board where we have a voting position, it seems like it's a little unfair not to be compensated when we're giving up our time and we're doing a hell of a lot of reading. And not to mention if we are traveling. And in some cases, these have incurred travel and recently they have not. But I would like us just to look at that policy that we are not being compensated for more than one meeting in a day. I get it if I'm on finance and lease committee and they're both in the airport and I break for lunch and walk right back for the second one. But I'm talking about exterior meetings in conjunction with either an interior meeting on the same day or another exterior meeting. And I asked Scott, I think I asked you to research it. Were you going to research it and tell us if that was illegal?
It is not illegal. It is at the discretion of the board.
There were.
Hold on, Miriam, you have some more before we open to comment on the board?
Pardon?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so, and it's not about me. I mean, I didn't even file my expense claims for going to Seattle. I paid my own airplane ticket and I tipped the guy myself. I did it all. But it's about, I think it's just about setting policy going forward, because these are the kind of things that keep people that don't have many resources from being on boards.
Director Miller.
Yeah, I agree with the concept, but the thing that came to mind was the city of Bell. They were doing multiple meetings and I thought there was legislation that came as a result of that.
There is, the legislation that came from them was the multiple meetings they had were at the same location with generally the same people. And it was all on behalf of, they were all city meetings, like it was like, it would be the equivalent of having finance committee back to back with air service, back to back with executive committee, and then they were charging for each individual one.
And that's been outlawed.
That has been outlawed. What board member Leffel is discussing is one meeting here or another traveling to another location for another meeting.
That's unrelated to.
That's unrelated.
To the airport, but not a meeting that we are putting on.
That's correct.
Yeah, I have no problem.
Yeah, if it's a meeting that is being put on by the airport, then there is one the maximum stipend per day would apply. But if you're assigned to, and I'll use board member Leffel as an example. If she's assigned to LAFCO, this agency is not putting on LAFCO, LAFCO is a separate agency. That would be a separate meeting.
Okay, thank you. Director Song? Director Sabo has joined the meeting at this point. Good morning.
Good morning.
And I would like an opportunity for Director Sabo to comment on this if he would like. So let's get him caught up very quickly.
What's random?
So we are on, we're discussing under G, item 1, Board of Directors stipends.
Oh, I didn't hear what.
So Marianne, just can you give Bill the Cliff Note version, please? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm late, by the way.
So Bill, my point was that several of us serve on outside agencies, and for me in particular, I've had, I think the last 3 or 4 months where I've had a meeting either at the airport or in one circumstance, I was at the RTA board meeting in the morning, and then I went to LAFCO in the afternoon, and I'm allowed to only put in for a stipend on one meeting. And I felt like that policy maybe could be changed. I get that if we're just sitting in the airport all day long, cranking out meetings to get money, that should be against the law. But I think if we are participating, reading packages, and either traveling or giving up our time for outside agencies where we represent the airport, we're voting members. In my circumstance, on 3 of these, I'm the vice chair of each of them. And so it just seems like it is appropriate to be compensated. And it, as I said, for me, it's not about the money. I rarely file expense claims on time. And if I do, I just put the bare minimum, or I don't do them at all. I'm not looking for the money. I'm looking for a policy change that in the future would compensate people for what they're doing.
Yeah, for example, Bill, for example, you sit on TAMC.
Yeah.
So if you had a TAMC meeting in the afternoon and an air service in the morning, you would submit both.
Yeah,
That's the concept. Very good. Any comment?
And the only thought I have is the extent to which I think our enabling act or some legislation from Sacramento limited it to a certain number of stipends in a day. Originally, did that change?
No, it didn't change. It limits it to stipends related to meetings that are put on by this agency. So and I use as an example, board member Leffel, if she is here at I'll just use a finance committee, and then goes to a LAFCO meeting, she's assigned to LAFCO by this agency, but that isn't put on by this agency. So that actually does not, the 1 meeting per day restriction does not apply.
Okay. I understand. Are you taking comments now or what?
That's what. You have any further comment? Go ahead.
Well, I think if we're asking board members, even if they're volunteers, to attend meetings or events or something on behalf of the board, it's just should hold the meeting, whether it's on a separate day or doing the same day. I think there ought to be a stipend for that. So I kind of agree with, I presume this is a proposal by the finance committee or Marianne.
At this point, executive director, this is just discussion, correct?
It is just discussion. From staff standpoint, clarity in the governance manual would be appropriate if that's the pleasure of the board. The outcome, if you are in agreement, would be to direct staff to present you with the appropriate changes to reflect this at the next meeting. We'll be happy to do that.
Yes, that's what I would.
And if I could ask one more question, would this be a change to our governance manual or a change to what are we going to change? if we determine to go through with what Director Level has suggested.
I think it would be a clarification to the governance manual.
I believe so.
Okay, is it in the governance manual right now?
It is.
Okay.
Director Stone, anything further?
No, I understand the concern and, you know, I think especially when we're representing outside agencies and things like that, certainly makes sense.
Dr. Miller, anything further? No. I absolutely agree with the concept, so I would direct staff to, as you just stated, Executive Director. Mr. Hugh?
Yeah, I do want to clarify one thing, that this does not change the maximum number of meetings per month.
No.
That still would apply.
And that is 6, right?
I think it's 4.
No.
Is it 6?
Yeah.
Was it changed to
We
6?
changed it
Yeah.
a year or
Okay.
so ago. Okay, any comment from the public on this item? Seeing none, I will direct staff to move forward as discussed.
Very good.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 2, Executive Director.
Very good. This is an update on our construction project. I think that was requested, I believe, by Director Sani at one of the last meetings. To give you an idea of what we are accomplishing on the north side. Chris Morello has a few PowerPoint slides for you to look at, and she'll walk you through the current status of the project.
Okay,
Good morning.
good morning.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Give me a second to get it into presentation mode. Okay, I am ready. So first to start, just a reminder of what the specific project we are in construction on currently. It is 2 components. It is phase A1 of the safety enhancement program that has been approved under the EA with the Federal Aviation Administration. And with that, there are the 2 components are segregated into the general aviation apron improvements on the north side, which is this blue section over here. Also included in that component are some improvements to taxiway Charlie right in here to allow for a connection from the new apron to the taxiway and then ultimately to the small runway. And that component is funded under the supplemental funding that we received in December of 2020. The second component of the project is the improvements to our vehicle service road. And that component is over in here. It begins, so we have a vehicle service road that was constructed as part of our runway safety area improvements on both ends of our runway. The one on our east begins up here at the top of the plateau, goes down to the toe of the retaining walls and comes back up over to here. It somewhat ends here in that there is a gate, but it's a locked gate and it's not it's a manual gate where you have to actually get out of your vehicle, unlock the lock, drive out of it, go back, relock the gate again. So we are making improvements to that gate connection to make it automatic, to add a card reader, as well as improving an access road that we have that goes along here, this back end here, to better serve both the future of the airport for operations, and it is also our construction haul route. That is another component that is included in this graphic that is here. The contractors enter through gate V27, which is behind our hangars over here on the south side of the airport. You can see it off of 68. You would come in, as you enter Fred Kane Drive, if you took the right where the taxis are, then go behind the parking where our tenants park. That gate is in the back over here. So this is the construction access gate. They traverse along the edge of the ramp over there, and then they come around taxiway Alpha here, and then pick up that vehicle service road here and come in. So that is the project that we have been in construction on now since the end of March. We started the last Monday in March of 2021. I'm going to take you through first the vehicle service road project construction components and where we're at on those. So as you can see, this is our pre-construction, what it looked like. As I had said, there was a vehicle service road right here. To familiarize yourself, we are looking from west to east. The Navy Flying Club connection gate would have been over here below where it says vehicle service road project construction. And then the fence line, the AOA fence line traverses along here. And just another view of pre-construction, what the road looked like prior to us going in for the improvements. Primarily one lane, primarily just chipped, and it traversed back and forth around along a number of trees, etc. So as we got into construction, this is week 2. First up was we started with improvements to that gate. So this is the gate I was referring to before, that where that vehicle service road from the runway safety area project traversed up to and stopped. This gate, as I said, was a manual gate. So this is the first step of improvements, is to make some improvements here, as well as making the improvements along the vehicle service road, going east to west. We're looking west to east, but they started from the east. So they started from this connection and worked their way through. As again, this is our haul route for all of the project components for both the general aviation apron improvements as well as the vehicle service road improvements. Included in all of this, vehicle service road will be all the infrastructure necessary. So as we got through with that first component, they actually did the clearing and grubbing in week 1, 2. We did a cultural resource evaluation. Because of the heavy undergrowth, it was not possible to see all of the infrastructure or what might have lied below that. So we actually had our archaeologists and our Native American tribe partners here reviewing everything as we went through before we started into full construction, and the site was deemed clear from any archaeological resources, and we were able to move forward. So first up is starting on, and this was a lot of the first portions of the first couple months as well, even into today, is the infrastructure below. It's all the utilities, which include water, sanitary sewer, storm drain, communications cabling, so that we can have that gate at that back access be connected to our access control system. Electrical and fire hydrants, which did not exist in this back corner. So that's another improvement, is there'll be fire hydrants along the road back there too. So that water line is serving fire hydrants back there. By week 13, we are back into some grading here. You're looking, this is the east end along our property line. This is our fence line along the east end of our property. Although we do own the property down below the hill, but this is where our fence line is. And we have, again, a vehicle service road that traverses along our fence line for security purposes and for maintenance purposes. But you can see here, there's a fire hydrant that has been installed right here at this back end. This is that gate would be off on the other side of that piece of equipment that's sitting there. So heavy into grading by this week. We've done the water line placement, and then it was followed by the electrical, sewer, and storm drainage improvements. By week 14, we are working on the swales along the side. We're bringing in some base rock, and then we will be doing compaction and compaction testing at this point. You can see it taking shape. So this is going to be the concrete swale for the storm drain water runoff. That will then be captured. This V ditch right here. And here we're back at the gate right here, doing again the electrical and communications cabling. This is that back fence we were talking about. So they're in here doing some compaction testing, some backfill. You can see there's some base rock right here. So we're getting ready for the back end of that project and for final grading. So as you can see, we've now done the compaction, we've done the base rock, we've done testing, and next up for this component of the project will be light poles. Again, I'll just show you here, right here. Here's another fire hydrant. So we put them in a couple locations on that back road, as I said. Next up will be the light holes, the gate communications, concrete swale. So this and this side will be concrete swale, and then pavement of this project. So those are all the components as it relates to the vehicle service road. The first 2 weeks, as I said, were really concentrating on the vehicle service road just for our haul route. So once we got through that component and got in and did the clearing and grubbing and made a path, both projects started and we're working simultaneously. So then we'll move to the GA apron project pre-construction here for this one. Again, at this point, we're looking east to west. Terminals over here, so I kind of give you a little orientation. Taxiway Charlie over here. And this was an unimproved area over here. And then you can see right here, there is some pavement. So this was the improved where Navy Flying Club, and we have had 7 T hangars over on this location over here. Again, pre-construction view, as the T hangars that I just talked about, the Navy Flying Club components over here. For those that are familiar, the solar array would be behind this piece over here, right in that section right there. So pre-construction, what it looked like before we went in. By week 2, we're over here milling up some of that pavement. We're stockpiling the milling and stockpiling some of the other materials that will be needed over in this general area of the construction. We've cleared that field out over here. We cleared and grubbed and got into that field over here. And we're moving our fence line. So we have a temporary fence installation going on right here. So week 1, as I said, was really vehicle service road getting us our access. Week 2, we started working on the general aviation with the vehicle service road at the same time. Again, week 2, just a little different view from the clearing and grubbing that took place. You can see there's a water tank right here. So this is the contractor staging area. They brought in a small contractor trailer that sits over here. And they also have a testing lab that's sitting over there currently too, as part of what they use for compaction testing, as well as pavement strength testing, et cetera. By week 6, we're heavy into utilities on this component as well. So again, this one is water, sewer, electrical communication, storm drain, same as the vehicle service road. Here we have a storm drain improvement. We have some sanitary sewer going in. And we also have some water lines going in. So you can see the different components that are happening right in this section, and my mouse just froze on me. Let's see if I can get it back. By week 10, we're actually working along the taxiway Charlie. These are going to be in pavement lights that you see in the concrete components right here and right in here. So we're making the improvements necessary for that new connection to taxiway Charlie. Again, you can kind of see where we're sitting at this point. We're looking west to east. Their staging area is right over in this area right here. So moving getting ready with, this is the storm drain components. You can see size of some of the infrastructure that's going in. This is a week 11. Again, this is just going back and forth along that whole section of the general aviation area. Getting into some compaction, we've done some base rock here. Subgrade conduits are primarily in these areas. The connections are not made as of yet. By week 15, though, you can start to begin to see it taking shape. This we're looking north to south. So over here on this section is, as you can see, the hangar community that will be moved over to this section over here. Okay, let's see if my mouse will work here. Week 17, we're bringing in base rock here. That's what the trucking that you see on this side, right on this side over here, as well as doing the final preparations so that we can do, again, compaction testing and making sure that the subgrade is in compliance with what is required. And week 19, we are doing a control test strip. This is a requirement of all federal projects, is that they do a pavement test. It gets tested by the labs. As you can see here, is that over here is the construction trailer I was talking about, as well as some of their other equipment. But this gets tested by the contractor, and it also is tested by our engineers. And then the tests are compared, they're made sure that they're in compliance, and if they are, then they are approved to move forward with paving. So we are currently waiting on those results for the test strip. And just an aerial I wanted to show you that was taken. You can see it taking shape to that first slide I showed you of what the project components were supposed to be. You can see the road over in this section over here. Let me see if I can get my highlighter back. Right over here is you can see that road taking shape along here. You can see the taxi lanes starting to take shape and the pads for the hangars taking shape. And then this section here has been a borrow pit. We needed additional soils here to build this infrastructure up. When we get to our next project over here of the commercial ramp, we have a lot of cut that will be taken out here. So that fill will be brought around and refilled over here. So we've been borrowing soils from here and putting them over here. Cost effective as well as environmentally sustainable, using soils on site and knowing that we're going to have a lot of soil that we will want to keep for the next phase of the project. So with that, that's where we've been going. We are currently on schedule, or I would say slightly ahead of schedule, and on budget, if not slightly below budget on the whole project. So we are moving forward very well, working together with Tiger Construction, Tartaglia Engineers, and Kimley Horn as our project managers, all working together, as well as air traffic and our ops team, making sure we have NOTAMs and everything in place, and everything is moving smoothly. So with that, I will take any questions.
Before we come back to the board, does any member of the public have any comment on this item? Ms. Roush, you have a comment? Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. That was a very great presentation. It was very easy for this lay person of the public to understand. So thank you. 2 questions. It seems, would you just confirm my impression that there will be no utility poles, that everything is being undergrounded? And if that is correct, will that continue to be the standard of improvements? And then my second question is, would you please comment on the impacts of traffic, any traffic changes now in week 2 and projected through what sounded like week 19, to Airport Road in the neighborhood community to the west, and to Delray Oaks. I think what you were saying, if I understood, was that the traffic was flowing through Fred Kane. Thank you.
Would you like me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. As far as for traffic, you are correct. All traffic is coming from Fred Kane, entering the airport environment and staying on airport. There is no traffic that is going via Delray Oaks nor through the Coney Airport Road neighborhood. As far as utilities, there are some light poles for the street, but if you're talking about our electrical connections and things like that, they are all underground, correct?
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we're going to move to the board. Director Leffel, let's start with you. Did we lose Director Leffel?
She's over as a panelist participant. There we go.
There you go. Director Leffel, we'll start with you.
Sorry, I had changed devices and was muted. I've got one question, Chris. And for the fire hydrants, did we have the capability of hooking up so that in the future, if we're able to use well water or a non-potable water, that we could hook up those fire hydrants to that source?
We can always change the connection in the future if necessary, yes. Those fire hydrants are on, that's all that line is serving currently, so that would be an easy fix to change those components. They tee off of the main line currently, so the connections come along currently along Airport Road where we had water. It connects, it picks up there, it tees at the gate access where we will go into the general aviation ramp area, and goes out to fire hydrants, off to the south to the general aviation ramp. So it could easily be reconnected if necessary in the future.
Terrific. And I just want to thank you because I know on our last project, we had a couple subcontractors that refused to always obey the rules, no matter how many times they were told. And it's very refreshing as an elected official not to be getting any complaints at all that any truck has wandered off their prescribed path onto some road that they're not supposed to be on. So great job with your staff with managing all of that and beating it into the contractors and the subcontractors that they've got to follow the rules. So I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And as far as the ahead of schedule and under budget, I love it. So you know what? Keep it up. I know FAA really has high regard for you and your staff, and it's easy to see why when you see a project like this, because it's got a lot of magnitude to it. It's got a lot of moving parts, and everybody's doing a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, one housekeeping item before we move on. We've had a bit of a problem over the last few meetings, especially since Zoom, that we're not picking up all of the audio. So for the recording, so please ask all directors and staff and public to speak close to their microphone and use a little higher pitch than you normally do so we can pick everything up. So please be aware of that. Thank you. So we'll move on, and I'm going to start with directors. We started already. Next up, Director Miller.
Thank you.
You have to use a higher pitch.
Yeah, I was going to say, how high do I have to talk?
Everybody's.
Thanks, Chris. A couple of quick questions. Are we trying for any LEED certification on this?
It'll factor, I mean, the project itself is not a LEED. There's not a vertical build yet on it. But we are tracking the sustainability components, hence the soil using soils on site, not trucking in more than we need, et cetera. So these will play into the next phases of our project where we will be looking for either LEED or Envision certification.
Thank you. And refresh my memory, if you said it during your presentation, I apologize, I didn't pick it up. But this is grant funded. To what percent does the district pay, and what percent does the FAA cover?
So the vehicle service road was our entitlement funding under FY20. And because of the COVID CARES Act relief, that is 100% funded. The supplemental was identified in 2019, although we didn't get the funding to fiscal year 21. That is at a 90.66% grant fund and 9.34% match by the district.
Good. And sort of related with grant funding, with the new infrastructure bill, or do we have any opportunities that are up that could present themselves to us?
Yes.
Have we looked at that?
Yeah, we have. We're continuing to monitor. It's still, as you know, it's still.
Well, we're only 1/3 of the way through right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's looking good.
There is money in the infrastructure program as the Senate passed that is targeted specifically at terminal buildings and airports this size that are in need of being relocated because of safety. And that's the perfect
That's us.
spot for us. So if the
Why didn't you say Monterey?
But no, there's $5 billion in that bill for that purpose over a 5-year period. So $1 billion a year for 5 years.
Okay.
So we think that, you know, clearly we'll play well in that arena. Whether we're successful, yet to be determined. But we still have to get the bill passed. Still has to come out of the House.
And the president has to sign it. So yeah, we're just 1/3 of the way through. Thank you for that. It's encouraging. You talked about some of the plumbing that you did there. Are we leaving? I don't know if the road doesn't look like it affects those wells on the north side, but are we putting any conduit in or piping should that happen?
No, not as part of this project.
Okay.
The wells on the north side are on the northwest corner. We're actually working on the northeast corner. So there is no connectivity at this point.
Very good. And then just to echo Director Leffel, quite an accomplishment to be ahead of schedule and under budget. I'm involved in a remodel project, so if you have some extra time, maybe you could let me in a hand. God knows I need it. Thank you, Chris. No further report. Director Son?
Not a lot of lumber on this one,
No.
yes, concrete, maybe it doesn't seem the price increases. I appreciate the presentation, and it's just nice to see what's going on, and you know, we've had these improvements greatly funded with FAA matches as well. I think the questions I had, or I wanted to highlight too, that our contractors have been great. We haven't had any concerns with Airport Road and our friends in Monterey, our neighbors in Monterey with construction traffic on that road. So that's definitely a big win for us overall. Thank you for the presentation.
Director Saber.
Thanks, Chris. That was certainly rather detailed. I have several questions, but they're shorties. And just to confirm again, the users of the surface road, is that confined pretty much just to either contractors that are doing work on the airport or our own staff? Is that, and I guess.
Currently and in the future, yes. Right now it's being used by the contractors only, exclusively. Our staff are not using it because it is a construction route and heavily traveled by the construction trucks.
Okay. And no public access.
No public access. Nope. It will be gated at the back end. And so no, it is not ever intended to be a public access.
Okay. And you may have covered this, but I didn't quite catch it. as I recall, on the south side, when we were putting in some of the highway self-storage units, we had a lot of mitigation issues for some plants. And in fact, I think that mitigation is still undergoing. This area on the south side, where we're expanding the surface road, seems to be in that same area. And did you not have that problem this time around?
We are not, we are using the existing service road along Taxiway Alpha that airport staff use every day. So they are not in a mitigation area at all. It's not impacting any mitigation components. We are staying on the gravel paved area of the service road along
So
Taxiway.
there's no construction on the south side for the road relative to the road. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
There's no digging or construction on the south side of the road.
No, there's no improvements at all. It's just the access is through the south side. There have been no improvements on the south side.
I was trying to follow the ways of didn't always catch up. On the north side, where we're doing all the digging, laying, all the piping and all that, have we made provisions for internet cable? Comcast comes to mind, and are we also providing telephone cable access here, because for the use of those hangars that will eventually be there?
We're not making a connection today, but we are putting in communication cable and on infrastructure. So we're putting in all the conduit necessary. ARF will need that as well. So yes, we know that it's necessary for everything over there, and the infrastructure will be there.
Okay, so you put the conduit in, and I presume we communicated with Comcast. I expected the Comcast, backbone, whatever, to provide service eventually there. Did they choose to lay cable now, or is that going to have to happen once hangars are installed there?
That will all happen once all the infrastructure goes on top. Right now we're bringing it to 90% basically for the future development. We are not doing the development. We don't have approval for the hangar infrastructure on top yet. We are doing all of about 90% of the base prep work. So all the electrical cables will be connected. That electricity will be there. We need that for a couple of reasons. We need it for the gate access. We need it. We will be doing some communication cable for the gate to our security system, but the rest will all come in at a later date once we know what is necessary.
Was Comcast and informed of what we're doing?
Bill, please.
What's that?
Thank you. Please speak up.
Oh, you want a higher pitch?
We need to get it recorded, so please speak up.
All right. Was Comcast informed of what we're doing over there?
I will get back to you on that. I don't believe so, because we don't know who the provider would be for when they have someone on top. So we are putting in the infrastructure and the underground stuff, but there's no connection necessary yet. So we don't know who a provider would want to be over there.
But where I'm going on all this is trying to assist if the plan is in the future for general aviation over there, and possibly other facilities over there, that the day that occupies, they don't have to start wondering, how can we get internet access? How can we get telephones and all that? But I'm sure you will deal with that when we go to that stage. Is that correct?
That will be part of the discussion regarding the hangar construction, yes.
Okay. It's an issue with every other airport, and that's why I bring it up.
Yeah,
the GA guys.
Yeah, as Chris indicated, the infrastructure to support that is there. We're installing that now, conduits and everything. The wires are just not being pulled at this point. They'll be pulled as part of the hangar project.
All right. And then did we make provisions in this particular piece of construction for wash rack and disposal of wash rack water for aircraft washing?
Again, the infrastructure is all there for what we anticipated would be provided on the top once we do the vertical. The vertical are the hangars, as well as the art facility, and yes, a wash rack. So the infrastructure's there. We're taking it to 90%, which is what is allowable under FAA's grant program. And then when we get to the next phase and we have actual plans to do hangar construction and a building construction, the rest of the connections will all be made.
So if there is wastewater in the future, we are placing in place some way to dispose of that water in the environmental safe.
Yep, we are.
Part of this piece, or is that yet to be funded in another piece?
90% of the infrastructure is in this piece.
Okay.
The balance will be accomplished as construction of the surface level improvements is accomplished. So when the hangars come in, when ARP comes in, when the surface is complete, then that infrastructure will be available to tie into.
So we'll have to start at that point trying to deal with the environmental runoff from a wash rack or the fire station. That'll have to be built at that time.
Correct. Yeah. Well, everything underground is going to be there. It's just connecting to that underground.
Oh, okay. So we are
So
putting
we're doing
some way to get it.
We're doing
to some
90%
safe
of
level.
we're doing 90% of that full connection right now.
Okay, all right. There used to be a bunker, what I call a bunker, a cement building over there that was on top of the hill near the Navy Flying Club. Is that gone now, or is that still there?
Nothing has been touched in the radar site. That's considered the radar site. No, nothing up there has been touched. Everything is still intact there.
Okay, and it's going to remain there, is that correct?
That is correct.
Projection.
For the foreseeable future, yes.
Okay, and then what's the, and you probably did mention this, what's the timeline for completion of everything that's undergoing right now on this project, this piece of project?
The contractor had 180 days. We're about halfway through. So they have up to, another 90 days to complete, somewhere around there. Again, we believe we'll be done ahead of schedule. Right now we have paving scheduled for early September.
Okay.
So we're moving along quite well.
And finally, I think the taxiway Charlie closed over there right now, and when is that going to be open?
It is today. It's been open for a while. We just are getting ready to close it again because of some of the work they're doing some concrete pours around some of the lights, etc. So it's closed for a bit and it will be reopened when that phase of the work is completed.
Thank you. I'm done.
Well, most of a couple of questions I had have been covered, but Chris, I do want to add, as the other directors have said, our appreciation for a really great job, and please make sure your team understands that we as directors appreciate all that you're doing. So, and also thanks for making this presentation very understandable to us lay folks. So thanks again.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right. We're going to move on now to H. Board committee reports, acceptance of department reports. If there are any questions from board members to the staff on department reports that will not be covered under any of the standing committees, please ask at this point, but keep in mind, if they can be covered under the standing committees, that's when we want to cover it. So just other than that, do I have any directors that have any questions for staff on department reports? All right, I believe that Director Sabo has a question or two.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm missing the right file here. There was documentation in our Word packet about electric vehicles, and our success at placing those charging stations out there with grant funding. I'm kind of interested in how we're monitoring the usage of those things from a revenue collection standpoint, and how that's matching up with the usage of PG electricity or our own solar collectors. How are the finances working on offsetting the cost of those charging stations?
Chris, do you want to take that?
I can try, well, I can talk to the usage and how we monitor usage. So the report I provided you is from it's through ChargePoint is who monitors the electric vehicles. They are the company that provided us actually the vehicles themselves through a grant through Monterey Bay Air Quality Control District. That's their interconnection. So we have access to see these. We have a dashboard that we can go into and see them on a regular basis. At this time, we wanted to get the infrastructure in place, and then the rates and charges component would follow. We just wanted to, again, see because these are different, they're new. They are different from what we had before. We were evaluating what the rates and charges should look like for that. So currently there is none. It's a complimentary at the moment. They do pay to park though. So because they're inside the parking facility, they do come in and pay to park. Probably, most sessions are less than 30 minutes, honestly. So they're not paying a large fee. Some of them, I think, do wander in, get a bite to eat, and then go back out to their car as well. But right now, that's how the structure is.
Okay.
Tim,
Are you finished?
I didn't know if Tim wanted to add anything to it.
Okay, so it's our intention going forward to charge the use of these charging facilities. Is that the plan going forward?
That is correct.
Okay, and do we have a way to monitor, or does this company have a way to monitor how much electricity is being used in those charging stations?
Yeah, that's part of the report. We can see everything. We can see usage, time of day, we can see it by hour, and we can see how much electricity is being pulled.
Okay,
And these are on their own meter as well. Part of this project is we installed a whole new transformer and meter. So these are on their own dedicated meter. So it's pretty easy to see what electricity is associated with the use of these charging stations.
Okay, all right. So it's our intention to kind of monitor, what it's costing the airport versus what people are paying going forward sometime in the future. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Good. I'm glad we have those things. And when somebody does use them and they pay for parking, can they stay there all day in that charging station, or do they have to move?
That's always a question, but we ask them to move. The process is you charge and you move.
Yeah.
We haven't had an occasion where someone has left their vehicle for an extended period as yet.
Okay.
We used to have that problem with the old charging stations that were closer to the building. We don't see that problem prevalent at this point.
Okay. All right.
Bill?
Yeah.
Before you move on, I have a comment on the same subject.
Sure.
Chris, I've had some friends of mine ask this question. They haven't had experience with these issues here, but have had at other airports. Can a person that's going to jump on a flight, plug their car in, jump on an airplane, and be gone? That's one question. And the second question is, I've heard that in other locations, what has happened is cars pull up next to that car, disconnect it, and connect their car. Is there any, maybe that's just the way it is, but is that a problem or a potential problem?
The first issue that you raised is an ongoing concern. And what we did with the old charging station was we regulated it to, I believe, down to a 2-hour charge period where you had to move your car after 2 hours or you were cited. And we intend to do that same here to control so someone doesn't plug in, go away for a week and monopolize that one charging station. Secondly, we haven't seen that occur, the pirating of other people's charging. We haven't seen that occur here yet, but because we have onboard police. They haven't seen it.
And I would add just to that with my, they are signed as well. There is signage there that they can, it's limited to 4-hour park, no more than 4-hour parking. So they would be cited if they're there beyond that time.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Thanks.
And the other question that I had in this particular segment is I guess we had, this is an operations related thing. We don't, in the Air Services Committee, we don't see the delays and cancellation reports because their information is available until right before board meeting. So,
Bill, it's really hard to hear you. Can you just speak into the mic? Thank you.
I can't get any closer. So anyhow, I'm concerned here about on the operations report, where we don't see in the Air Services Committee meeting about delays and cancellations. It doesn't distinguish. We had a 40% delay rate overall with all of our carriers in, I guess that was June or July, and those delays. Is there a way to segment out inbound delays versus outbound delays? It's certainly an inconvenience for some of our passengers if they're trying to make connections out of here. Can you speak to that with the operations department?
I am not sure exactly that we can segment departure versus arrival, but I'll get back to you on that.
Please do, because I think with a 40% delay rate, it's interesting. Now, if it's inbound, it's we can't control that. Outbound, I'd like to know more about that. And I noticed that the Del Rio Police Department intervened with a clutch of seagulls, and which we've all seen, along with my friend Wily Coyote out there. And so my question is does the operations department have a wildlife protection program going? I don't know what the term to put on,
Sure.
but are we dealing with seagulls? That's a
Yes.
big deal for me and those aircraft.
Yeah, we have an established wildlife management program. We administer that program ourselves until we need to bring in fish and wildlife.
Yeah.
And we are very active in that program. That program is renewed every year. Our maintenance department is out continually harassing, if you will, wildlife that are trying to make residents on the airport. So yeah, it's an ongoing issue, but I think we handle it pretty well.
Okay, the reason that came to my mind was I was kind of surprised that Del Rio police officer got involved in, I don't know, shooing them away. I don't know what he did, but would he normally use instructions to him, or is it policy that when they see something like that, certainly try to intervene, but do they call the operations department to kind of get eyes on the situation, maybe
Sure.
do something about it?
Depends on day and time. If operations are here, there will be communications between every member of the team, including maintenance, operations, police. Anyone who's on the field, when they see a wildlife situation, they will harass and try to shoo away, if you will. And then they communicate amongst each other what's been going on. So it depends on the day. There are certain day parts and certain days when we don't have maintenance here or we don't have operations here. And then DRO police stand in to take care.
Yeah, this was Saturday morning at 4 a.m.
4 a.m.
It's good to be.
I'm not trying to get big, but as a guy that's had a seagull come through my windscreen, and it certainly is a very big deal. And
Sure.
adjusting it into a turbine engine is an even bigger deal. As we saw with solid, so we have a program and we're on it all the time.
We do.
All right.
Mike, can I add to that? Just to tell you that we do annual training for everybody on staff, for all operations and maintenance team, annual training on wildlife hazard management and techniques. And we track it on a day-to-day basis and a monthly basis. And we are always tweaking the techniques so that, because birds can be smart and they can get used to one technique. So we tweak the techniques. And we have a rotation of different techniques that we can use to manage that. And to the delay, if you just remember, July was bad storms in both Phoenix and Dallas and Denver. So that is why there's such a number of delays, is due to storms, both in inbound and outbound. There were horrific storms. So just to that point of delays.
I am aware of that we have a wildlife program. I was getting a little more concerned that you addressed the question about communication when we do have an event, if it happens on the weekend or something like that. Operations, or is this an operations function, Chris, or is this a maintenance function? Chasing away birds.
Both. It's anyone that's on the field. Air traffic will call and tell us if we need to get out there as well. It is all eyes on the field. Jet Center, Del Monte, anyone on the field, a fueler, if anyone sees anything, they know how to contact us and get someone out there.
All right.
All right, any other further questions? And Director Miller, did you have anything on department or no? No. Okay, very good. Let's move on. And before we start, we're going to start with budget and finance. But again, I'd like to remind the board members that please limit questions after the presentation to anything that has not been covered by the minutes. And then when you do have comments, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. All right, let's start with budget and finance. Director Sawney, do you want to start?
Sure, we had a good meeting. It was a shorter meeting overall, considering it was the end of the year too. We did have, or that was a month before, I'm sorry. We did have, we met with LSL, our auditors, and discussed how we're going to go about the approach, and just met with them. They will be coming to the board likely in October and presenting. And I don't think we reviewed our normal reports, and everything was pretty good. Anything else, Marianne?
No, I just want to say from a long-term board member, the presentation that Brandon gave us, his homework in advance, the fact that they have really dug into the CARES Act funding and into, they're looking seriously at our long-term liabilities. I really believe that we have a quality firm. I feel very, very good about the work that they are about to, they are embarked on already, because they've done their pre-work. And I believe they're here the end of August on site. Is that correct, Mike?
That's correct, yes. Mm-hmm.
So they will actually be here, and it felt like such a good professional interchange, and his presentation was prepared for us. He wasn't just showing up and waiting for us to ask some questions. So I think you can feel very good about it. I think we'll get a very good audit again this year. And then I also just wanted Mike and Chris to just comment. We did have a discussion on, we didn't know what was going to come in that the new package coming, and I'm not sure that we still do. But also, I think there was some talk in our meeting that the unused funds from the first reimbursement, if we have not used them, they might be, I guess, recaptured by the government so that they are offsetting some of their future promises. Is there anything on that, or did I misunderstand that?
No, not entirely. You're pretty well spot on. The concern that we expressed in committee was that the yet to be offered grant from the American Recovery Program, we had not seen that grant. And what we were concerned about was that as part of the infrastructure bill, there were efforts in the Senate to claw back some of the unallocated CARES related money or COVID related money. We finished that meeting and walked out, and unexpectedly we got the grant for the airport or for the American Recovery Program. That grant showed up later that afternoon. So the concern that we had expressed to the committee has gone away. So we now
Okay,
for
okay.
ARP.
I'm sorry, I must have missed the email that we had received it that afternoon, so I apologize. I
No.
thought it was still hanging out there.
Yeah, no worries. That's okay. But yeah, we're in good
I'll
step.
read my emails more carefully.
Thank you. Director, any questions?
No, finance, thank you. Good. Looked like a pretty busy meeting.
Director Sable, any questions for finance?
Thank you. I'll lose my voice here, but I
Praise the Lord.
there is anyhow, we I've raised this concern before. It was indicated in the committee report that the contract or agreement with PFN was reviewed, and that there was also discussion of extending their work, PFM's work, into the area of CalPERS UAL considerations for the district here. My question is why are we regarding PFM, why are we not looking at, as a board, looking at that agreement that we have with them? If it's going into that area, and are we looking at other firms that may have equal or better expertise in advising us on how to deal with the unfunded liabilities of CalPERS?
I interviewed two firms, the two most active firms in California related to the UAL issue, which is not exclusive to us, it's every governmental agency that is participating in CalPERS. There are two firms that were interviewed, the two most active, NHA and PFM. Interviewed both of them. It was my determination that it made most sense to engage PFM for, number one, efficiency, because they've already been with us on the initial phase of the financial analysis. So they knew us already. They knew our financial position. So we gained some efficiencies there. Secondly, as we look at how we're going to approach the UAL issue, it will undoubtedly have some impact, positive or negative, on our long-term financial strategy for the safety enhancement program. So it made logical sense for me to engage PFM to work with us on the UAL issue, because it's part and parcel of the overall financial strategy as it relates to future development on the airport. I hope that answered your question.
It does partially, thank you. But and just to be clear, I'm not trying to get into the work of the finance committee. That's what they're there for, but it didn't get addressed, in my opinion, adequately in the minutes, and the extent to it doesn't indicate how much we're paying PFM for that additional work. And I went on the PFM website to see what they at least say about their expertise in this area compared to the other firm that you mentioned, and they didn't mention I didn't see anything about the UAL business. And I didn't see a correlation between what they're doing for us on the safety project versus and the financial aspects of that and the CalPERS UAL. I didn't see a link between the two, but it's such a significant, as one director who's been around a long time looking at this UAL growing, it's a big deal for us, you know, and it's costing us a lot of money. And other municipalities are dealing with it. How much are we paying PFM for this additional component? Because we haven't seen the agreement with that.
That agreement was shared with Finance Committee. It's not to exceed $30,000, which is under my signing authority.
Sure. Is that for both pieces or the safety?
Both pieces would.
Well,
it's
piece one would be how to fund the safety project, and number two,
no, we've already paid for piece one, as you refer to it, the safety enhancement program. We've already paid for that. The initial phase of that was presented to the board a few months ago, actually. The second phase, the UAL, is a wrap-in at not to exceed $30,000. And the reason that it makes sense to do that, as I indicated, was we've already done piece one. And a lot of the financial information about the airport was embedded in piece one. So as we look at piece two, which is just the evaluation of how we deal with the UAL issue, there's a lot of commonality there, and there's a lot of interplay there between those two issues, because ultimately, as we deal with UAL and we deal with the capital improvements program, you can't separate those two. So it made sense to have the same group that we have used in the financial planning aspect for the safety enhancement program also look at the unfunded liability, the UAL component, because it's going to involve either a bond issue on the part of the district or the establishment of a Section 115 trust, both of which will come at a cost to the district. And how we position that cost, if you will, as it relates to the other debt that we are contemplating for the safety enhancement program, is going to be really important in how we present the overall package to the finance industry, to the bond market, if you will. So that's the logic behind using PFM. And maybe that made it.
Okay, well, you know, at some point, we as board have to show some of it to the finance committee, but these agreements are being signed and without any review by the board. So you explained it very well. I guess I would like to know, because I'm very concerned about the UAL issue growing like tops, and other jurisdictions are taking steps with the 115 or whatever that thing is. I think Carmel just did that. And so what is the timeline for PFM to come back to the committee and to this board with some kind of an initial approach that educates us and then maybe makes a recommendation? When is that going to happen?
We have our initial meeting on this topic next week, at which time we'll have some kind of a calendar or schedule for the events here. You've got the entirety of this year to deal with the UAL because we pay that once a year, and we've just paid that. So we've got some time to work through that issue. So I'm not saying we're going to take the entire year, but the urgency is not there. We'll certainly be diligent in making sure it gets done. If I had outside director, I would say you're probably going to see something in 6 months or less.
Good. Okay. That's adequate. I just didn't want it to be, you know, part of the 5-year project.
No, it is not.
It's, to me, as one director, and I'm sure with my colleagues, it's important that we get our arms around this.
Chair Curcio, if I could just add something to that from the Finance Committee. Our auditor did bring up the fact that the state had seen exceptional returns this last year in excess of 20%, but that no one anticipated that that would go forward for any period of time, that it was more of a one-off item, and that we should expect our unfunded liabilities, unfortunately, to continue to grow. And he was pretty adamant about that. He said he would see them growing over the next 10 years. So to Director Sabo, and I think the reason I asked this whole topic to be put on the agenda a few months ago, I think it's really important that that PFM does their work, and I feel really comfortable that our auditor also has a handle on it and is looking forward with us and not just looking back at what we've done. So to maybe soften your concerns, Bill, I think that we have some good professionals working on it on our behalf. And I, as an old finance person, I feel pretty comfortable with that. It'll be interesting to see what comes up both from PFM and on our annual audit, and then the recommendations going forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Input, Mary. Again, I'm not trying to get into the business of finance committee. It's just it was covered very briefly in minutes. What do we? This is kind of a question of the financials. I noticed that we're using a lot of district cash to fund our capital projects, or the district only capital projects, or maybe some other things. But instead of using the CARES money, is there a reason for that? Why are we not using the CARES money, given we have funded something, and why are we not projecting our cash reserves? Okay, I'm making myself.
You are, and it has a lot to do with sequencing of grant dollars. And as we get, take a construction project, for example, we will pay the invoices as they come in, and then we'll get reimbursement from the
This is reimbursement.
Correct.
Oh, it's that game again.
Yeah, it's
okay,
that game
all right.
again.
I get it.
Yep.
I know it. But
Yep.
the intent is to preserve our
Correct.
district cash.
Yeah, and yes.
Okay, and then final, this is a real small thing, and I hate to bring it up, but it looked to me like Swift Air is starting to owe us a lot of money. Some of it's 120 days, and everybody else is paying their bills apparently.
Yeah.
What's the issue with Swift Air? Because their 737 airplane
was just here.
Is parked right out there.
Yeah, just left. They do this on a regular basis. Tim can probably address it. Will be able to address it better than I, but they'll take their time paying us, and then Tim has to make calls to the people, to the network that he's established there, and then we get paid, and we go through this dance every once in a while with Swift.
Do we
They're
just
actually
get paid on that that don't really owe thing for
Yes.
$3,500? We expect to get paid. All right.
we've been paid.
We've been paid.
Yes.
Where did that voice come from? Are you in heaven? Or is this Iowa? You know. Okay,
It's Iowa.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to air service and marketing, and Director Sabo, I want you to keep going, so give us your take on that, air service.
Well, we had a lot of discussions about, the good news about inbound traffic, and most importantly to me was outbound traffic, and I guess we're doing very well. We had a few comments from the passengers about some of the conveniences they have come to expect at airports, like being able to use the kiosk to, I guess, I don't know what they do at the kiosk, check in or something like that. But the kiosk at work, I guess that was American's kiosk, and there were some other concerns about the parking, lights for the rental car company. So I raised those concerns. I think we're in the, I raised the concern that we are in the customer service business, making their experience at the airport as pleasant as possible. I guess I was informed that we don't have any, we can't do anything about what America is doing with their kiosks out there. If they don't work, they don't work. You know, it's so disappointing to me. And because we're really thinking about future changes to the terminal, we can't put any do anything with the lighting of the rental car area. So I was a little disappointed in that. The major question that I dealt with in the air carrier meeting or the airline committee meeting was we are having a significant problem over Pasadena, which is coincidentally my jurisdiction with and a district jurisdiction as well as being there. And so what we're having is fairly good cooperation from most of the air carriers with the exception of Alaska. Alaska apparently will not use any of the alternative routes to the airport. And so they fly right over on all of their flights right over Pasadena, which is just west of the airport, which is a little disconcerting. And I expressed my concern about that because by virtue of living there, I get all the grief from the constituents who are concerned about the air carriers. But for the most part, most of the air carriers are playing to be friendly to the neighbors, and they're coming down Highway 68. Well, the big concern is, it's very evident during the concourse here, is for some reason, whether it be the air traffic control tower or the Tracon, NorCal, all of the business jet traffic is coming right in over Pasadena and not using any of the alternative methods for getting into the airport, even though they're advertising the alternative methods as the preferred approaches and all that. So I expressed my concern that, I counted them on, I guess it was Saturday, and there was 25 business jets that came over Pasadena. And I don't know what's broken down there, but I suggested that we needed to investigate that a little bit more, have discussions with the control tower and NorCal, because I hadn't seen any reports from about conferences with NorCal for some time. I hadn't seen it. Executive director indicated that they're having those conferences all the time. I don't see the reports. So we have a problem, a noise problem, and what I'm concerned about is getting the neighbors really upset to the point where they do things like they're doing at Reed Hillview up in San Jose, like they did in Santa Monica. They turn into enemies of the airport, and it's avoidable. That's what I'd like to see us do as one board member. So we have some work to do relative to business jets inbound to the. That's all I have.
Thank you, Director. I would like to add, I asked Executive Director LaPierre if our marketing proposal will be brought before air service next month, and it will. So we will be having that addressed at our next board meeting. Mike, there was one other, you need to help me out on this. There was one other item that was going to be brought to air service next month, and that's slipping my mind. Oh, what it was, there were two items. I said, yeah, we're going to really be busy. One was the marketing, and I thought there was one other bill. Did you remember what that was? We can't remember. It's not there for you.
Yeah. Honestly, I do
Yeah,
not
no
recall.
worries.
Yeah.
It'll wash out.
Yeah.
Getting it.
I'm sure I'll remember it. So,
Okay, Director Sani, anything for air service? Director Miller?
Well, I mean, as far as Pasadena goes, we're half the complaints that we were last year, so that seems to be a nice trend. I do appreciate the greater detail that we're seeing in the noise reports with the active cake and explanation. So that was helpful. I know that I'm on next door for the area where I live, and somebody was complaining about the airport and how they moved here not to be in the San Francisco or a LA. And it was about 24 responses, all came out pointing at a car week and business jets. So it was very encouraging, everybody was quick to respond that, yeah, there's increased traffic, but it's only once a year for car week and it really boosts the economy. So I think most people get it, at least from the other end of the peninsula. And the only other comment, our employments up 15,000 from this month last. Great news, and down only 3.7 thousand from 2 years before that, which was an all-time high for June. I guess we're only doing June. Yeah. So good news with employment. Getting back to the noise complaints, how did we fare on noise complaints during the AT&T? I mean, during the car week? Did a lot?
I don't have the answer to that. I haven't seen that report yet. I don't know, Chris, do you have any input there?
I can look at it and get back to you in a couple minutes.
There you go.
That's all I have. Thank you. Director Lovell, any questions for Air Service?
I do, thank you. I had a couple. I see that Portland's, the Allegiant flight seems to be having a huge problem of keeping to its schedule. And just from a standpoint, Mr. Lapierre, of how that's making us look as an airport overall, is there a way that you can actually have a conversation with them?
Yeah, and we have. That problem is not related just to here. It is throughout the entirety of their system. They're using the same response that others have used. They're having trouble with staffing. They're having trouble getting people to fly the aircraft. So pilot, they're professing a pilot shortage. We're going to continue to have those conversations, but you're right, it does impact not just the airport, but it impacts the viability of that market. And we're having those conversations with them.
Yeah, that was, that's my fear, that people will think it's us and flying in and out of here to get there, but B, it's it may poison the market for anybody else that would want to come in to fly it on a regular basis. So if you can stay on it. Vegas is one thing, and I think people going to Vegas are maybe in a different party mood or a different mood than maybe the people particularly that are going to Portland. So just the ones going to Portland seem to be going for vacation or seeing family, and it's a different type of crowd. And then my other thing was, I saw that there was discussion on how systems are repaired remotely, and it had to do with the kiosks.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And I saw that Lapierre indicated that staff would contact AA personnel to make sure they are aware of the complaint. So what was their reply? Was there a resolution on that?
No, there's no resolution that I'm aware of. I'm not sure. They have a problem with one kiosk in particular. We continue to point that out to them. They're aware of it. It seems as though it's going to require AA to bring someone in to resolve the matter, and they've not done that yet.
Okay, well, can you put that on your list of reporting to us as this month goes on? it can be an email out, or else have it at the board meeting next month, and at air service, so it doesn't fall off the radar. Because I saw 2 or 3 comments that people made again on social media. So I think that we need to be aware of. It's one of the things that people think those pieces of equipment are ours, and that we should be able to fix them. And so it's just one of those things. Every time they perceive that it's the airport, it's perceived that we have somehow failed our community. So if you could stay on that, that would be great.
Sure. You bet.
Thank you, Director. Lease, Director Miller, why don't you take it?
We had a very abbreviated meeting. We talked about the rental car lease, and that's scheduled for a closed session discussion. So really nothing to add at this time, other than we have been receiving complaints. We are monitoring it, and we are going to talk about possible action moving forward. Rental car companies have self-inflicted wound with selling off their inventory, and then another problem with finding personnel. Everybody is to work with. So we'll be talking about this in closed session. Other than that, really nothing else to report from me.
I have nothing to add, so let's go to Director. Is Director Sonny anything? Director Luffel, any questions for Elise?
I have none, thank you.
Director Stabler? Very good, let's move on. Thank you. We're going, nothing for local jurisdiction, Executive Director. Very good. Moving on to liaison representatives. Director LAFCO.
The LAFCO meeting is canceled for this month, so I will report back in September. There is a third-party report being prepared by a water specialist who works for several LAFCOs, and that person has taken the CalAm report and the Water Management District report and is looking at them and looking to see where reality is. So we'll have that report in our hands as commissioners sometime in September, and we will have a September meeting.
Thank you. Regional taxing met, huh, Director Level?
No meeting. We had one last month, and I reported on that.
Got it. Director Sabo, Tansy?
No meeting.
Right. Director Miller, Special Districts?
Yeah, we already reported the last meeting we had, and the next quarterly meeting will be in September or October? October, I believe.
October.
Yeah. What's that? Even at, I think the Marriott, that's at the end of August and the beginning of September will be CDSA, the Special District Association. Always a good conference. They have workshops where you can attend training on the areas that you are interested in. Scott, will your law firm be participating this year?
I'm not sure. There was some chatter about one of my colleagues doing a presentation, but I've never heard the final result.
Well, I recommend it if you haven't attended one. It's pretty informative and it's convenient having been in our own backyard.
Carl, if I might add, there is still scholarship money. You don't have to be, down and out district in order to apply. And according to CSDA, usually those funds are not used. So staff might pursue that and see what scholarships are available and then send out an email to everybody. Because I am chair of the local districts, mine is comped, but I really recommend that you all attend if you can. It is very worth your time.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Executive Director, anything on Association of Monterey?
AMBAG met. I was unable to attend, as was everyone. We were engaged at the McCall's event that evening.
Well, no question. Okay, with that, we're going to adjourn open session and go to closed session. So Scott, is there a special?
Public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have some.
Just Gene Rack. We have one member of the public.
Okay, who is it? Ms. Rausch?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Rausch, go ahead, please.
She doesn't have her hand up, it's Chris who has her hand up, if she's recording that.
Chris, what do you have?
I did want to report back on the noise request issue. Nothing unusual, no additional this weekend at all. It was more of a typical.
Very good. Thanks for checking on it.
Mhm.
She checked that there was no additional noise complaints. Okay, at this point, we will adjourn open session. And Scott, is there a special link for Mary Ann to come back on?
Yes.
Mary Ann, do you have it?
I do. Are we going to take 5?
We're going to take 5 and then we're going to go to closed session.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Below the code. Big holes.
Welcome back, everyone.
Thank God. Thank you, God, for big holes.
Welcome back to open session. Thank you for your patience. Do we have, I want to make sure we get this, we're going
Would you like a report
to
out?
go right to Jay, correct?
Would you like, actually, we need to report out of closed session.
Yes, we have no report.
No reportable action was
No
taken.
reportable action in closed session. We're going to go to Jay.
Yes.
All right, we're going to go to item J, which is approval of employment agreement with Director Lapierre. Scott, why don't you kick it off?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an item that we have discussed. It's an employment agreement with Mike Lapierre. It is essentially for a 3-year employment with an option for 2 additional years. At the end of the 2nd year of this agreement, you have by mutual agreement of the parties an option to add 2 additional years on the back end. Most of the terms are identical to the previous version of his contract. There were some amendments that were made at the request of the board that are acceptable to Mr. Lapierre. And again, as we discussed, there was a modification by Mr. Lapierre's request in section 2, paragraph C, that was amenable to the board as a whole. I recommend approval of this agreement, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? I have none. Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Amanda, roll call vote.
Director Sonny,
Yes.
Director Level,
Yes.
Director Sabo,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chair Percio.
Yes. Yes. Very good. Motion passes unanimously.
And Mr. Chair, just so the record is clear, I see no attendees in the.
Yeah, we
in the
asked
public.
at the front of the meeting. So
Yep.
Okay, Mike, thank you.
Thank you.
Now the hard part starts.
That was fun.
Actually, the hard part continues. Let's start.
That was fun to do.
All right, let's go to anybody have any future agenda item they would like to see? Director Sabo?
Yeah, I do. Can you come back to me last?
Go to last, all right. Director Miller, anything?
No, I think what we have on there is a PERS report.
The UAL report, yeah, that'll stay there for a little while until PFM is ready to.
Only thing I asked when we do get the report, maybe it can be a little bit more expansive rather than just on unfunded accrued liability issues, but to include, how the curves, direction it's going in, or in future trends. Because there has been talk about we're a 2-tier system now, there's actually been talk about adding the third tier. So
Yeah, we can
I think
get
that'd
that.
be helpful for
Sure.
maybe just understanding curves a little bit more.
I can at least get them to give me their opinion on where things are going. I don't know whether they've made decisions yet or not, but if they have, yeah.
It's just how they're doing, I'm hearing reports that the residents have been doing better, but it's, so is everybody. Except for today.
Ooh, today's bad.
Yeah, today was.
Okay, what about the update on the status of business license?
That'll be, that's something that legal counsel and I have to work on, and hopefully that'll be to you in September, perhaps October.
Very good. Okay, now we go to discussion of future agenda items, Director Sabo.
Yeah, I'm proposing that we have a discussion of policy. I propose that we have a discussion of policy on the board with a potential resolution. And that is regarding the FAA's letter to all the commercial airports regarding the dealing with unruly passengers that are identified by flight crew members at the time of landing. And the FAA has, among other things, indicated that it has no authority to do criminal prosecutions, only civil file civil charges. They kind of implied they'd like the support of the airports in dealing with criminal charges on these things with their local district attorneys. And I think I feel very strongly about interference with flight crew members. Interference with a flight crew member of the flight crew identifies somebody as unruly and needing to be met by police, that the police need some guidance as to what they do with the filing of charges on the whole thing, and up to and including filing charges with the district attorney. And I don't know what our history here is, but I'd like to hear more from the staff and their recommendations regarding policy on interference with flight crew as it may involve disembarking passengers here at Monterey.
Scott,
Yes.
can you make a comment on that as far as where the actual airport fits in on this? I could be confused, but I thought that the airport really didn't have much to say, meaning that the flight crew, if there's an unruly passenger, does what they have to do, and then they could request that the local police be at the gate. And then eventually it ends up to the district attorney would make a decision on what is prosecuted and what is not. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
So where does the airport fit in?
We provide police. The only issue that there is in the airport is if the incident happens in the terminal, not on the plane,
Right.
then we may have witnesses, we may have to call the police. But other than that, the only issue is we provide access to the airplanes for the police to deal with that issue.
Because we actually have no part of what the flight crew decides they want to do or not.
That's correct. It usually happens before the plane ever arrives.
Right.
I'm not sure local police would have jurisdiction for an incident that occurred in the air. I believe that's federal, and it's usually held for the FBI to come and investigate.
So typically what will happen, you are correct, although what will typically happen is they will take the statements of the local police will take the statements of the airlines and again, if, for example, I watched a video of individuals fighting on an airplane. That DA is going to prosecute based on the video of one person punching another, assault and battery. The DA said, I see it, it happened in this jurisdiction, I'm prosecuting it. So it can go so many different directions depending on exactly what the incident is. it really depends on what's going on and what the flight crew says, and is there video of it?
Let me clarify what agenda item. For one, I wanted it to be a discussion. I didn't want it to be decided today whether we do something or don't do something. I just wanted it on the agenda. Number two thing is the question right now for the chief, in this case, it's our Delray Oaks chief. He has to make a decision, or the officer in charge has to make a decision to whether after the report is written up and found, whether it goes on to the district attorney. He can have a very liberal policy and say, we're not sending anything to district attorney, that doesn't involve us, that's a federal matter. Or you could say, they just punched somebody in the face and injured them on the airplane, therefore we took a report and we want to charge them with something, interference with the crew member and great bodily harm or something like that. I think we need to, as a board, as an airport, as an executive director, give guidance to our police officers who are going to be the people that are involved in meeting that aircraft, listening to the crew members. I know as a crew member, if I said, this guy did, or this woman did this following thing, really, it was very bad. And I hand them over to the police, and the police say, don't do that again, but the people don't, I would be very upset, and I think contributing to more of that behavior. I wanted a discussion on the agenda and your opinions on the whole thing, including legal opinions and all that. I think we need to give guidance to our police officers. That's my position.
So as a point of order, does this, Scott, does this not require a second?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion from Director Sable. Do we have a second?
I don't see a harm in just reporting on what the policy is of the police department. I think it's probably pretty easy to ask what their policy is. They contract out with electrical, like all the police departments do in this area. And they probably have a written policy that can be fair. Or it maybe doesn't have to be agendized, Bill. They can give you a copy of their policy.
No, I want the whole board.
So are you making a second on the motion?
Sure.
Okay, it's done. You got it. Thank you.
If maybe have the police chief come and give you a report.
Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Appreciate your patience.